Spook.
Yacht. Who are you? Doesn't matter.
What are you doing?
Well, now that you've asked, I'm reading a script for a new movie that's coming out called Ginnivan the Movie, and I'm playing the role of Ginnivan.
Okay. What are you doing?
I'm rehearsing my lines.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm never doing that joke again, Spook.
And I'm the chief.
And that's the chief.
So we are going to do a pre-season preview of Collingwood, and we've got all three of us down here together.
Oh, yeah, I thought we were reviewing Velma.
Or Ginnivan the movie.
I want to see them all.
What will I do with my Oscar?
Collingwood in the off-season. A few changes. Paul Tuddenham was voted onto the board. Any thoughts?
Good on him.
Any thoughts about Paul Tuddenham on the board?
Oh, it's good to have some competence on the board, isn't it?
Another ex-player.
Is he?
He was,
Tuddenham?
wasn't he?
I've never heard of the name Tuddenham at
I don't
Collingwood.
know where that name came from.
Yes, he did play a few games, didn't he?
You know, what do you think about the board now? Because we were part of the push, I believe, to overhaul the board. And then we had a really good conversation about it. It's like, now it's just thrown open slather to the public, and they can vote in anyone, and we don't know what their qualifications are, if they're going to be any good, if they're going to gel.
What do you mean they can vote in? What do you mean they can vote in anyone? Anyone can put their name up, you mean?
Yeah, anyone can put their name up,
Okay.
and then the public can vote them in. And the person who gets voted in, this is not an indictment on Paul Tuddenham, but anyone could get voted in who's actually not actually competent to be on the board.
It's a popularity vote.
Yeah, it's a popularity vote.
That's what politicians do.
Yeah, I know, but it
But
should.
these are football players.
And this is a business.
That's what
now.
politicians do.
But this is a business now. So do you
Okay.
think it would be better if actually the board said, these are the candidates we can canvass and you vote for these ones?
No.
Did you vote in the last election?
I can't tell you that.
Oh, that's fair enough. That probably puts this to bed right now. No, I guess there's an opportunity here for this to be...
I didn't know you could. So in the Collingwood election,
Yeah, well, you're a member, aren't you?
I am a
Chief?
member. I didn't know.
Love
You,
the club.
I didn't
You're
even know.
here because you love Essendon.
I actually didn't know you could vote because I wasn't a social club member. No one told the
Let's
members.
push ahead with this.
No, so what I was going to say is I think this one was a bit of an exercise in how...
Futility?
Yeah, no, well, how do you suck it and see type of thing. I imagine that they would have learned a little bit about this one because you had pretty much, it became down I think
It's a popularity
Tuddenham got in based
Yeah.
on the name. I don't think that they really pushed what the qualifications were hard enough, nor did they really let on what they were looking for in that other board member, what skill sets and that sort of thing.
I mean, they're in a tricky position because if they anointed someone, then it goes back to the Eddie thing. And if they leave it open,
Yeah,
then they're
well,
possibly going to get someone who's not a good fit.
Was the rock and a hard case.
Is it?
I think next time round, it'll be marketed, I think, a little bit better. There'll be a lot more of a blurb about we're looking for this. We think these are the candidates that best fit that role, and let them sell themselves probably a little bit more openly.
So you just said sorry to the chief. Is that about the sketch you two did?
Oh,
What were you going
I
to
thought
say?
it was hilarious. Was that the first time it's actually happened that
sketch,
and that'll
Yeah.
be the last time that
Yeah.
sketch happens. No, the first time
It's
a
been-
board member's been voted in this way at the Collingwood
Since before Eddie. Yeah.
since
So
since
what Eddie,
before
Eddie
yeah.
used to, and Eddie bragged about this on Footy Classified, that they'd handpick and then they'd just get it ratified at the AGM, regardless of whether the person was qualified for the criteria or not. And this is the first time it was thrown back to the public under that great push of democracy. But like as we were talking about it when it's sort of thrown open, it was like, well, now it is just thrown open to the masses. They don't know much about these people outside what they've said in a 200-word statement. So how do you know you're going to get the right person? You might actually get someone, and again, not in on Paul Tuddenham, you might get someone who's totally inept, and they're going to be voted in. Whereas if it's a board, because the club's a business, so you'd want the club to be appointing the best people in these positions. So they're going to have to find some medium, in my opinion, about where they are getting people who are going to further them, rather than someone's going to sit on the board and be not quite the right fit.
I think ultimately, though, the voting base cares about who they vote for to be president. Board positions maybe not so much so, and that could also be reflective of that too. That
And it'll be interesting if the
care
board,
factor just wasn't really there.
because the board, they would be wanting certain people in there who represent skill sets.
Well, three of us.
Well, I'll get to us in a minute. But it's like previously when they appointed Bridie O'Donnell and what was his
Neil
name?
Mitchell,
Neil Swan,
Nick Whittaker,
the other guy.
the guy who works for the VRC, wasn't it?
Yeah, VCO. No, yeah, but he was really good on internet and marketing and PR, online stuff and all that, and she was a really good sports scientist, and they obviously targeted people who were going to fill those roles. And then there was a big uproar, which someone here might have started, or some people here, yep. But then you look at it, it's like, well, now they got someone, again, no indictment on Tuddenham, but they got someone who doesn't fit either of those roles. So they're obviously identifying, it's like saying, oh, you run a business, you smuggle crystal or gold meth into the country through Walter White, and you said, I need someone to market this, and then instead you got someone who was a physio. It's like, well, that's not going to do me any good.
Do you think they've got to get to a point, like you said, a medium? So they might say anyone can go, and the board might endorse X to do that, but you can still vote.
From X-Files.
Whoever that person happens to be, and people will vote that way. So we endorse me, and but anyone can go up and vote for whoever they want. Anyone can put their name up. Maybe that's the way.
But once they endorse someone, that person's going to win, unless the board's totally inept. Like so everyone loves this board. They're coming off a season where they finished third, and so if the board says, "Yeah, we want that guy," or "We endorsing that guy," everyone's going to vote for him.
Yeah, so the board gets what they want, and you get a vote. So it's basically both things.
But it's prejudice in the vote. So I mean, it's a fine line. This is what I'm saying.
But is a prejudice in the vote that Paul Tuddenham, there's nothing wrong with it, but he's got the name Tuddenham? Is voting?
Well, that is.
Name?
I mean,
or someone who's got more name out there in general. So not Tuddenham, somebody else has got name in general, rather than just any old person.
Look, in the end, we started a big fuss about this, and look, we want the club to succeed, which means they have to have the right people in the right positions. And if they're now voting in people, and it's not their fault because we started all this shit. If people are getting voted in who aren't going to do that, and they become anchors, then they don't really belong here. They belong at Carlton. So what you want...
you said anchors.
Yeah, you want people, obviously, who are going to further the club's needs. Anyway, let's move on from Tuddenham. No indictment on Paul Tuddenham. Craig Kelly was appointed as CEO. Former Collingwood player, premiership player. Nathan Buckley's manager. Father of...
The bride.
What's his son's name at Collingwood?
Willie Play Kelly.
Will Kelly, okay. I kept getting Jake. I mean, yeah. So what do you think about disappointment?
Disappointment? It's what it always comes back to, isn't it? My first reaction is, it's twofold. I think he's a good appointment. The disappointing part for me is that need to keep going back to the Collingwood well for filling roles. I think you've seen this year what happens when you bring different intellectual property in. Last year, sorry. I keep forgetting we've time warped. With Fly and Lepper and all these people coming in, that you're bringing non-Collingwood thought into the equation. And, like we've always done in the past, we become better and win flags under non-Collingwood leadership. It just seems too comfort zone, huggy-wuggy stuff to just keep going back to Collingwood people. I would have liked them to have cast the net and brought in someone.
They might have done that.
And the thing is, he could well have been the best fit as well. So it's that 50-50 thing. I'm going to have a little bit both ways. I'm happy, but I would have liked to have seen somebody else come in, but I'm not unhappy that
I think he seems sharp, so business mind and all the rest of it, able to run a business, built up that business from nowhere.
Elite sports properties
from nowhere. But is he still involved in it? Is there still a conflict of interest in a lot of those sort of things? Is Elite Sport Properties going to try and get all the Collingwood players as managing him while he's still profiting off that? And it's hard to get rid of the perception of a potential conflict of interest between the two.
Isn't there a conflict of interest that he played in the Premiership and now he's at Collingwood?
No, that's just a great coincidence.
No, what I was going to say, in his speech after he got the job, he actually went out of his way to say, I'm not going to talk about premierships and blah, blah, blah. And he sort of said, no, all I want to talk about is, just want everyone to be good at what they're doing here and all that sort of shit. And I actually wasn't a big fan of that statement. So, no, I want you to come in and say, this is our goal. This is our aim.
Well, it's like, was it Kennett who came and said, I want to win 4 premierships in 10 years or whatever it was, when it was Kennett, wasn't it? He came out at Hawthorn and said, that's our goal.
Definitely wasn't at Collingwood.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Kennett when he came in this second time. He goes, we've got a plan over the next 10 years to win 3 premierships or whatever. Yeah. That's what you want to hear. All right, you're not going to win 10 premierships in 10 years, but
you should be... course at Hawthorn.
Yeah, but that's at least that's a goal. All right, that's our goal. And if we don't get that goal, any business does it. This is our goal. This is our plan. And the plan is... not to make a profit, the plan is to win a premiership. That's what the club's there for. So whether it's AFL, whether it's AFLW, whether it's basketball or netball, whatever, the aim is always to win a premiership.
Yeah, I mean,
and
Gary,
everything should be subservient to that.
Yeah, Gary, who ran for the board also, who we interviewed, he actually made a really good point, is you need to know what your destination is and then work your way back from that. And it concerns me a little bit that still, when the talk of premierships with this club is everyone just sort of shudders. It's like, oh no, don't mention that. And you get people celebrating last year like it was a premiership, if not for the Papley push. And they're still sort of falling into that victim mentality of we would have won if not for the Papley push. And it's like, well, you would have won if you didn't get up 6 goals, but you did. You know, and that sort of worries me. Is still that victim mentality. Is I want someone to come and goes, this is what we're aiming to do. And, you know, and if we don't do it this year, then next year we're going to reset. And that's what we're aiming to do. So that's like with this club, it just seems anytime anyone mentions a flag, they get nervous. Spook, any thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I would have liked to have, and then look, I mean, I get the point that he made about that. You know, there's 16, 17 other people from other clubs are all going to come out and say that our goal is to win X amount of flags in X amount of years. They're all saying it now. Yeah, but it doesn't. I don't give a fuck what everyone else is saying.
Well, that's the thing.
I think it's important that we are unified in where we need to be on our destination, and that's not one fucking flag. We should be aiming for multiple flags.
And I'll actually point this out too. Someone wrote an article. I can't remember if it was Jake Noel or whoever, but anyway, they wrote an article.
Was it Jack Noel?
Could have been. But they're talking about like the clubs who've come out and made those statements, like Carlton, and they haven't actually gotten anywhere near there. Hawthorn was meant to have won another one by now, and I really hate when people defend a stance by pointing at someone else who failed. It's like, for example, you know, when you get a shit movie and then people point at another shit movie and go, well, they did that, so this is actually a great movie. It's like, why are you pointing at shitness to make your point? Point at greatness and aim for that. Not fucking constantly sort of going back and going, well, we don't want to do it because it didn't work out for them and we don't want to embarrass ourselves either. That annoys me.
But you think there'd be enough people at every club to know how to get to a premiership? There's enough experience around to say, you know, with analysis of the last 20 years of football, say, all right, to get a premiership you need A, B, C, D, E, these things need to work and this needs to work and this is what needs to work on the field, this needs to work off the field. And so our goal is to get those things in place because, you know, you might not win it, but that's the most likely, you know, that's how we run our business. That's the most likely way this business will succeed, or that's the most likely way the club will succeed. You know, everyone's got to have those in place. So it's just a different strategy to get there, but there's certain building blocks that need to be put in place to be able to win a premiership, and there's consistency behind it. So everyone's got to look for that. We should be saying that we're this far away, and all we need is A, B, C. Like in 2008-9, we were. You know, we needed a ruck and a in and under, and we got him and won a premiership.
But going back to that, like everyone should sort of go, well, this is what we need. And I think I'll take Elias and Killer as an example. It's like a few years ago, they just went out and, you know, replenished their list with all these, you know, Paddy Ryder and Hill and all this, Dan Hanbury and all these sort of recycled players. And we did that, you know, 5-6 years ago when we got Dunn and Wells and I can't remember the other one was Dunn, Wells, Main, sorry. And it's like, look, no offense to those players, but you're bringing in some guys who are like, they're good battlers, but it's not like Richmond bringing in Tom Lynch or Geelong bringing in Jeremy Cameron. You know, they're bringing in A-list talents. You're going to get an A-list return. You're bringing in battlers. You might as well just play other battlers on your list. So that's why actually one thing that frustrates me is, like, I look at the list and we've talked about this and talk about it a bit later, is have we brought in players that are going to bring us close to a flag?
No, we said
but we'll go back.
Yeah, all right.
Darcy Moore, appointed captain.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Oh, there we
Baptism of fire though today.
Yeah.
What happened today?
He came out and made a speech about Jack Ginnivan.
Yeah. Who's he?
What was it?
I heard they're making a movie about him.
It's a good one too.
No, well, as well,
the script.
we've got Ginnivan on the list here. So I mean, the Ginnivan drug scandal. So there's two parts to this. One, the drugs, and two, it wasn't at Essendon. No, and two, that he was filmed illicitly.
That's disgraceful. The fact, like, seeing that, and if someone had the camera over the top of a toilet cubicle, that guy should be bagged that actually did that in the first place. I mean, there's no one saying, oh, he took the drugs. This guy is actually, you know, peeping Tom on a guy in a toilet. You know, it's a disgrace.
And I heard someone tell me, I don't know if it's true, so I stand to be corrected, but Channel 7 also paid for the footage.
Did they?
That's what I've heard. So I don't know if that's true, so apologies, Channel 7, if it's not true. Because we know you don't really pay for quality content. But, yeah, so that's what I heard. Yeah, and, like, look, Ginnivan totally in the wrong, so I don't want to excuse him. But also what the guy did who filmed him, that's fucked up.
there should be some, and I don't want to use him as the point of blame for the cause of this, but there really should be some repercussions for that. Look, if Ginnivan was in the middle of a room and taking that illicit substance in a general area, and you film, well, then you're asking for it.
Like if he was at the sink washing his hands, people, and he's doing it right, that's a different story. But
I don't expect to go into the bog and have someone thrust a camera under the door or over the top of a cubicle. Not these days, not anymore. Those days are gone. But I think that's probably the unacceptable behaviour type of thing. Now, clearly, he's recognised who it was. He's obviously put two and two together what was going on in there and thought, well, fuck, here's an opportunity for me to make a bit of a name for myself or be the hero or whatever he thought he was going to be. And that's a disappointing element of it. But that's society these days. Everyone's got a high definition movie studio in their phone, and
but how many people would put a phone over the top of a toilet door? That's a bit. It's wrong doing it, but seriously, that's.
Well, okay, so if he just did that and Ginnivan was just
doing
Joe Public, and he did that, this guy did that, you'd look at that and go, well, he'd be roundly condemned, but because it's a footballer and celebrity, and it's like, well, let's excuse that. And the reason I believe is because you have the fucking gutter journalism of people like, I won't mention them by name, but like Craig Hutchison and that, who sit in... Like, I recall... It was Craig Hutchison who followed Ben Cousins overseas.
Yeah. Went to the LA or whatever it was. Went over to the US.
And I recall that on whatever show he was on, but Wayne Carey was stirring him like about some stain. He goes, "You'd be hiding in the bins out front." And that's sort of... All the door
stopping. He said not only the bin.
But that's all the stuff with the door stopping that Nathan Buckley complained about a few years ago, where we excuse journalists for doing whatever they need to do to break an exclusive. Mark Robinson years ago effectively makes up a number and says this many people are taking drugs at Collingwood and buries them from something that was it was meant to be an anonymous survey of players and all that sort of stuff. And then the club didn't know. And you get this journalism now where people just excuse it. You can do whatever you want to trump up a story, whether it's there or not, and so you get stuff that just keeps going on, which is absolutely insane, and the AFL does nothing. And I complain about the AFL media all the time.
And you'll see out of this event too, the media don't see it as a means now to report the truth or anything.
No, they got their man. They're quite happy about it all. How great are we?
They'll dine on this for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and you saw today there was someone who said that they were a mother of an ex-player who was forced into taking drugs at a Collingwood function, rang Neil Mitchell's program. And, this is the next phase now where we're going to drag anything and any semblance of a connected story in and try and sensationalize it. I mean, tomorrow, Christ knows what it's going to be. The boundary lines, there's going to be something missing from the boundary line at training. And there'll be a camera crew filming it.
Yeah, I haven't liked for years. We're complaining about the media constantly, about the way they operate. I don't give a shit if they break something that's genuinely there, but it's the era of clickbaiting. So, and you get people like, I remember Dermot Broden last year complaining about an article he wrote or co-authored or whatever it was, but the headline they put on it to get people to click and stuff like that. It's just absurd. And meanwhile, the AFL just sit there and go, oh, well, we don't give a fuck, which is terrible. Any further thoughts on the Ginnivan thing? What would you give him as a penalty? I mean, he's got him 2 weeks apparently.
I think there has to be some, and I think he's come out and he's owned it as been fairly clear. There has to be some responsibility and accountability out of the thing. I don't know. Bailey
got 2 weeks. Bailey Smith got 2 weeks. So it's about the same thing. So.
He gashed his leg at the intra club. He probably needed those 2 weeks to get over it anyway. But it's 2 weeks, two of the main
2 practice games, two official games,
and 2 pracky matches he's out of. So look, I think somebody wrote an article. I think it might have been Jake Nile, or maybe it wasn't. About that, I think the biggest wake-up call out of this is that Ginnivan would have been a walk-up start round 1. You got Hill sitting there on the outside looking to cement a spot. You've given him a head start.
And that's actually very similar. You go back to about 207 with Shannon Cox, was it? What is his name?
Was he filmed in a dunny too?
No, but like...
Cox in a dunny.
Cox in a dunny.
But wasn't his name Shannon Cox?
It is Pride Round.
Anyway, he was like in the Adelaide game we played over there, and him and 2 other players.
Leon and Egan.
Yeah.
And they went and visited family.
Yeah, and I think he sort of lost his position and he never really got it back. I think Tyson Goldsuck might have come
No,
from.
and conversely, Egan went down to the twos as his punishment. Did his knee?
Yeah, so like
So they all got off lightly.
Well, they opened the door for other players to take their opportunity, and I mean it's pre-season and apparently players are flying. I've never heard that. Nathan Kreuger and Charlie Dean, long-term injuries on the list.
Did they come off?
They're on the list.
It's like a revolving
They
door.
came off for November and they went back on again.
Revolving suggests they come out of that door and then go back into it.
Well, I think as they were getting out, they got their arms and legs and shoulders crushed.
Oh, it's disappointing for both. And Dean, the club has big raps on him, and no wonder he needs the bandaging. Nathan Kreuger, shoulder again. You really hope he stood up. That opens the door for Oleg Markov, who's been signed at the club. 27-year-old, played at Gold Coast and Richmond.
Was it 5 seasons, wasn't it? At Gold Coast, last 5 seasons.
Was it 5? I didn't think it was that many. But apparently he's as good as Andrew McLeod from everything I'm reading from Collingwood supporters.
Of course he is. That's why we got him.
I haven't seen a moustache this good since the Spanish Armada.
He should be twirling it. Going into this season, you've picked up these players like Hill.
I didn't pick them up.
You did personally. Hill, McStay, Frampton. Who's the other one I'm missing?
Hill, McStay, Frampton, and the other one you were missing.
Yeah. So we picked up... And Tom Mitchell, sorry.
So,
So,
how could you not remember him?
I can't remember him.
So those 4 guys you've picked up, how much do you feel those 4 improve Collingwood, and how much do you feel those 4 add something to the point that they would have gotten us over the line last year into a grand final?
So you got to think of who do we lose?
Oh, Brody Grundy's gone.
Yeah, Blakesy barely played last year.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it.
So
And the one who had to go
Roughhead.
home, the one who had to go home to mummy.
Yeah, well,
yeah, wanted to go to a mummy. And Roughhead was out injured for most of the season.
Yeah. I think
Roughhead never came back,
Yeah.
so he only played like half a game.
I think those that could have dragged you over the line certainly last year would have been Mitchell.
Yeah,
I think he's an inside ball
and
magnet.
we're getting killed on the inside.
Although according to who's the Mark? What's his one of the journalists?
Mark Robinson?
No, Mark Robinson. One of them, I can't remember his name.
Jake
right
Noel?
now. No, could have been Jake Noel.
Probably Jake Noel.
Wrote that Collingwood has a plethora of inside mids and how
Have
they're
we?
gonna fit into it. He
that's right.
tweeted it. I can't remember his name.
Oh, it's that. I was going to say Buffoon. John Ralph Mouth.
Oh, really, Ralph Mouth. That's it. Yeah.
Does he watch Collingwood games?
No,
Obviously
exactly what I said. I know. I think he's watched them on VHS.
That's not the first time he's made comments, right?
Like, watch a 3-minute highlights package.
No, I remember with him years ago. He criticised Ben Rees as like going back quite a few years.
He criticised him back in 1972.
And he was criticising him and Nathan Brown go, well, because we got smashed by Sydney that week, and he came out and goes, these two would be worrying about keeping their spots based on their form. And I was like, you must have seen only one game because the rest of the year they've both been pretty solid. And if you drop them, there's absolutely no one else to bring in. So, so all these inside mids that we have at Collingwood, that's good to know.
And I think this year and last year he would have made an enormous difference. I think he'll make a big difference.
You think John Ralph would have made a difference?
John Ralph would have made an enormous difference as an inside mid. Because he'd be falling over a lot. No, I think Mitchell will be probably out of the ones we brought in, he'll probably have the most impact.
Yeah, right from the word go.
Well, actually, know someone who knows someone who knows someone who just raves about Frampton.
Yeah.
Okay.
And said that he was pretty much starved of opportunities. He's unfairly maligned by the Adelaide supporter base. Though I just think you just have to breathe in the wrong direction to be maligned by South Australians. Apologies to all those Collingwood supporters in South Australia. We love you all, except the insane ones.
Don't make it internet there.
Except the ones that don't vote for Collingwood.
You can edit that bit out.
No.
What was I saying?
Frampton.
He's all the track watchers are excited by him, and you know how right they always are.
Well, it's unusual for them to be excited about anyone in pre-season. I've never heard that before.
No, but I think he did. I did hear raps on him that he'll. The prediction was by this person that he would have an enormous impact with us. He was that confident of his abilities. So I don't know what happened to him all those years ago, but he's coming good at the right time.
The one thing I'll say, he's a tall player, and often they can take longer to mature. Traditionally, Collingwood have done well with defence in terms of cultivating him to become solid and all that. So I don't know if that's still with McRae. He's more of an attacking coach, but previously, between Buckley and Malthouse.
Yeah. Well, even your Dunn, your Roughheads, which of those, they were good servicemen for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, here's hoping. I mean, I think Hill's like a really big addition, adds a lot of pace. The one thing with Ginnivan and McCreary is that, as far as I've seen so far, they don't have a lot of X factor in terms of manufacturing goals from the impossible.
McCreary's, I mean, I don't think that's ever going to be a factor of his game, but his pressure is what's...
Yeah, but I was just going to say, it's nice to actually have someone in there in Hill who has that ability.
And he can feed off that pressure. Yeah, if McCreary's bringing the ball to a stop and around, a quick little bloke like that can pick up and make a lot of those opportunities.
Look, last year, I think, Ash Johnson was great in the air, great with a mark, but once it hit the deck, he had no idea. So, it'd be good to have Hill down to be able to pick some of that sort of stuff.
He had even less idea when he hit the deck in Sydney. Anyway, it was terrible in that Sydney game. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I thought there was going to be a...
I thought you would have done something.
That's it.
Did you observe that pregnant pause?
No, I left it for the audience to just go, where's this going?
Well, if you put a laugh track in like the Americans would, we'll be right.
No, you know what it's like? It's like a lightsaber in the chest. I'll answer it in 3 rants.
No, just add something in there. Cut something in there. I don't know what. Just cut something in there and come back.
Probably a bomb going on.
No, between McStay...
pregnant lady?
Mycheck, Johnson... So none of them are like traditional huge tools. I mean, McStay's apparently tearing up the training track.
Kick 5 in the intra club.
Sure hands, beautiful kick. So we'll work that out of him.
Well, is then Big Mason? Is he going to be up there?
Cameron's on the hamstring, so Cox looks like he's going to
do the ruck.
Well, and he's got the first half of the season stitched up.
Yeah.
So from the
Collingwood hamstring, that's
from the reports. From the reports of the intra club, Cox was marking everything, and I think his tap work's really, really good. The thing I like about Cox, when he gets it right, is he really attacks the ball with intent. Whereas Cameron still seems a little bit.
Well, McStay was playing sub ruck a fair bit for Brisbane last year.
But that's what it'll be. You can't play both Cameron and Cox while you're playing Mycheck, Johnson, and McStay. So you figure they'll go back to that sort of 2010 setup with Lee Brown. That one of those guys, one of the taller guys, would have to be McStay or potentially even Johnson. Who's got a good leap. Will do the pinch hitting ruck.
I think McStay.
Yeah. I mean, Mycheck could do it, but he's not really that big. So what do you think this year for Collingwood? You've probably got teams around Collingwood who are going to improve. Geelong, they're all 40 years of age, but they proved that age doesn't matter last year. Sydney, be interesting how they recover from being smashed in the grand final yet again.
I don't think you recover from that. No. I think they'll start the descent.
And I think the Cats, the players, the older, sold out, all this sort of stuff. I think you'd think this was last year was their year, and they took it, smashed us, and they would have beat us as well.
Right in the grand final.
Yeah, of course.
Well, the flip side of that argument is anyone else in the grand final would have beaten us too.
Well, it would have only been Geelong because they were there, So I reckon Geelong would go down. Sydney will be,
You got Melbourne who are eager to atone for being shit last year, and they've made a great pickup in Brodie Grundy.
That's good to see how that works.
That'll be interesting to see how that works. Brisbane have actually had some really good pickups in Josh Dunkley.
Yeah, they could be good.
But, they've sort of been sitting there for quite a while. So, it's surely this has got to be it.
Isn't there, what's that guy, didn't he, their forward, was it King, or did his knee or something?
King's Gold Coast.
No, Hipwood.
He did his knee last year.
Okay.
But he came back, didn't
he? Yeah,
he came back. He was playing the last couple of games. So you think they're one. Carlton, if they ever get their shit right, they've got the talent on the park to, beat anyone. Bulldogs had a disappointing year last year. Port Adelaide, surely this is Ken Hinkley's last year.
He's been there 140 years, hasn't he?
Well, he's done a great job, apparently, making 1 preliminary or 2 preliminary finals, so off what our standards were low.
Worked for Chris Scott for a number of years.
But they've picked up the guy from North Melbourne.
Hughes, Thompson,
Horn Francis, whatever his name is.
And Brown.
Which Brown?
One of the Browns.
Tyler Brown. Yeah.
One of the Browns.
Yeah, Tyler Brown. I think Tyler Brown, he can still become good. It's just anyway. But of the teams around us,
Goldsack's still going around up there.
Yeah, I think he's still on the stock list.
I don't think he's left. He just keeps turning up.
Richmond's also picked up a couple of.
Have a good year, see you, coach.
Richmond's picked up Taranto and Hopper, so
see if they fit. Dusty. So who knows what Dusty's going to do? He could do absolutely nothing.
I think it's folly to suggest that Richmond will be any good.
Yeah,
I think they're done.
I reckon they got one more punch in them. Getting Taranto and Hopper allows them just to play Dusty exclusively as a forward. Should he?
He's 74 years old though.
He's been a battering ram, Dusty. You know, he's one of those guys that's just been
playing as a fringe forward. He could really be dangerous. I think they got guys like Jack Riewoldt and Cochin and all that.
Isn't Jack Riewoldt older than Dusty?
No, I was going to say this would be their last hurrah, and that's what I think Geelong probably had an element of last year. Like a lot of these guys realised we've been up here for a few years. This is it for us. So and everything just sort of fell into place for them. So Richmond. Yeah, look, I think it'd be folly to actually dismiss them, especially in this league, which is just so... what's that word? Shit.
Close.
You got Essendon.
I thought they have to come good eventually.
Yeah, but it won't be this year.
Oh, they annoyed a lot of sides last year. I think they'll win more.
Essendon's just annoying, though.
I think they could just scrape into the 8. No. Just out of sheer annoyance.
The one good thing I'll say about Essendon is they've had a lot of players go out and they've gotten really high returns from them, so they've brought a lot of top picks in. Now, when those guys mature, I mean, obviously a few other guys like Hurley finished up last year and stuff like that. Now, that Ruckman who won the goal of the year, because apparently a Ruckman running into goal and kicking one is qualification to win goal of the year. I don't know why Mason Cox hasn't won it twice, but they've got sort of like a good underbelly of mid-aged young talent. Now I don't know if they're good enough to,
And Tipper's back.
Tipper
Goody.
Oh, Tipper Woody's back. Okay.
Is he? I thought he retired.
Yeah, he came back.
Oh, okay.
Did he come back to Essendon?
Yeah, he goes, you never truly leave.
Essendon.
He goes, if Goldsack can do it, I can do it.
And then what's the name? Gold Coast. They threaten constantly to be good for like about 4 games, and and they re-signed.
Where was that joke before? With the pregnant pause, you just looked at the camera and said Gold Coast.
And they re-signed. What's the coach's name? Stuart D. For the next 19 years, I believe.
How long's he been there for?
No, he's been there a while.
That's what I'm saying. He's been there a while and not done much.
Yeah, he grabbed those lollies out of the coach's pocket. That was a good effort.
So, what do you think Collingwood sits in the grand scheme of the AFL 2023?
Look, if it all clicks, certainly top 4 wouldn't be out of the question. I probably think we've got a harder draw this year. I think the big factor is you ain't going to win 11 games by half a kick ever again. I think we'll be brought back to the pack a little bit, probably bottom half.
I hope that like of those 11 games, you win 5 by 6 goals now, rather than.
Well, that should be the aim.
Yeah,
definitely the aim.
Chief,
I think we'll make the 8, and then part of it's going to be injuries and the rest. How much injuries we'll get.
Well, we'll start
Kreuger and Dean are not. Walk-up starts at the club. How much improvement?
Well, definitely not now.
How much improvement you get from your Nick Dacos and a few of these other guys?
He's flying on the track.
It's dominating the midfield.
Well, actually, let me just interject. The one thing with Nick Dacos, like I have heard Nick Dacos and Tom Mitchell are just ripping up the track. And I think it was David King. He actually said Nick Dacos will win the Brownlow based on what I'm seeing.
Our midfield looks like Tom Mitchell. I think is a fantastic pickup. He's just the ball magnet machine to get it out. And
Nathan Buckley never thought so.
Yeah, I know. Those 52 possessions were just junk possessions according to him. Yeah. But lucky he's not there anymore. I think the midfield.
But you put 5 years into this club.
I think the key for us is. Yes, he did. It's this thing. I think the key for us is the forward line and what system works best in that forward line, because at the moment there's 6 different systems I can see, and I don't know which one might work or might not work.
You've talked about that, Spook, that kicking the big scores was an issue for us last year.
Yeah.
I think we struggled to kick over 80 points in most games, so it's how that works this year. Hopefully McStay kicks 60 and Mio kicks 60.
Yeah.
So one of the big problems, you played that chaos football, and at Richmond they had Lynch and Riewoldt, so they got big bodies to bring them down. The one year they didn't, they had like Lynch and Caddy, Riewoldt and Caddy playing that, and then you had some genuinely exciting forwards like Dusty and that who could capitalise. Last year, I thought one of the problems of playing that chaos ball is who's it going to that's going to be, you don't have an Anthony Rocker there who's either going to mark it or spill it for everyone else. So you're going to sort of miss-sized players like Mychek and expecting them to play bigger than they are. And Ginnivan and McCreery, like I've said this before, if you could smash them together, you'd have the perfect player. McCreery's pressure's relentless and it's awesome, but he doesn't get enough of the ball. And Ginnivan gets enough of the ball to kick a couple of goals, but when he doesn't have it, he's just sort of loitering around. So one's got to up their pressure, the other one's got to...
And that's the problem. Too many of our forwards are one-trick ponies, So those two, like I said, Ash Johnson's great in the air, but once he hits the deck, he's got no idea. Mychek's just a workhorse, up and back. So, he'll be serviceable for 40 goals. Cox, if he's having a great day, will mark everything, and if he's not, basically won't barely get a touch. So,
but with Cox, I'd like to actually see McRae didn't really do it. That just sort of set him up in the goal square and just get the ball down to him as quickly as possible. I mean, no one's ever done that with him outside of a couple of quarters, like the second quarter of the prelim. It's 5 years ago, where they actually moved the ball quickly to him, so he couldn't get blocked and all that. It surprises me that you have all these people at the club who are going, we're going to make this guy forward, and then they go, well, you know what, we're never going to deliver it to him quickly.
Yeah.
Instead, we're going to go really slowly, really roundabout, so by the time we get to him, he's got 4 people hanging off him, and then all the supporters can get upset when he drops a mark when there's 12 other players hanging off him.
And he never gets a free kick when he gets his arms chopped. But, that's because you can't... That's the thing. For us, it's key about how to make the forward line work and how to get the right thing.
Massively.
And if we do that, we'll be top 4.
Yeah, definitely.
Breakout player for the year?
Who's going to jail?
Ginnivan.
And we break him out first.
We didn't even talk about the go. Sorry, whether he's in midfield or forward as well. So
he's a mid.
So then, if you're talking about just going back to that, talking about a midfield that's got the Goey, that's got Adams, it's got Mitchell, you got Dacos. It's strong.
It's not a bad little midfield.
Roland's the B side of that. So I think you have to set it up in a way that there's always one of those guys with the complementing talent.
You're talking about Hoskin Elliott?
No. And he should be the sort of guy that, unless he has a great year, that they supersede this year. I mean, Oscar Allen's getting a lot of plaudits for being a big-bodied, good user of the ball, who's their first draftee last year. Well, let me just ask you something. They got rid of the 35 tradition of handing it around to...
Good idea.
Yeah.
We've mentioned that about a million times. The guy, I think, he'd be rotating through... It'd be like Dusty.
Yeah. So, things... It looks good. The midfield looks good. Defence should be solid.
Well, who's the breakout player then? Like, who's the guy coming up? Because, Degoe fits in that conversation because he sort of always threatens to take the game by the scruff of the neck. I think he was All-Australian in 2018 as a forward. But, as a midfield, he's never consistently...
Does Nick Dacos count as a breakout player? He's the breakout player.
You sort of feel like there's an asterisk on his name. I want to mention him, but I don't...
Well, if he goes to another level...
a lot of his kicks this year obviously was taking the kick out of the back line. So, that counted as a kick because you play on and you take a kick. So, we had 30 possessions or whatever, some of that. So, if he plays in the midfield, you'd think he's going to dominate.
What about Pendles? Not the breakout player, but in terms of...
Oh, he has to go down the back, doesn't he?
I don't know.
Would he be a goal sneak?
No.
No, I wouldn't thought so.
You'd have to play like a tall forward.
No. He's still got to rotate midfield back, because it's smarts. The smarts are there, if you get the ball in the midfield.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work. They won't put him out to pasture.
No.
He's going to...
And they won't leave him in the back.
They're still in their best 5 players last year.
Well, that's the thing.
They won't put him in the back the whole way.
If it all falls apart, you throw him in the guts. At least you've got that luxury. It's going to be interesting how they deal with it. I'm sure the Fly's got something in mind.
And then going back to that, if you throw him in the guts and then you have a Degoe who's doing well and a Nick Dacos, for example, if that's the setup.
Well, they can go back and rest as well.
But I was just going to say, or whether it's Adams, Mitchell, whatever, at least then opposition are looking at Pendles going, well, you're the third guy we're going to have to mind now, not the second or first guy. So at least he can sort of slip away that way, hopefully.
I think one of the boulders could be Quaynor this year.
Well, Quaynor's sort of, I won't say he's disappointed, but he skyrocketed and he's just sort of been there for quite a while. And he has some really good patches, but he never really rips the game apart. You never look at it. And you never get that same sense that you got from a couple of sense, but like from John Nova, where there was games he really sort of took it on and created meterage from and all that sort of stuff. I mean, John Noble's one, I think, unless he continues to improve, he's one that they could sort of...
does his role, though?
He does well.
He's a hard one to drop.
Gets meterage, like you said. So, and he takes the game, he takes run. So who else are you going to replace to do that type of role?
Nick Dagos. No,
someone without red hair, according to him.
No, look, I think Noble did a really good job last year, but...
Why are your teeth gritted?
If you look at the side, look, I've said this before, you're building this side, which is typically Collingwood. It's really scrappy battlers, and they can do a really good job for so long. But then when you need the class to win out, like in a prelim or a grand final, they go missing. And that's historically, not just now, historically that's always been the case. Now, the couple of times that didn't happen was like in 2010. You had players who were really classy. You go back to 1990, when they won, even though they only kicked 11 goals, they had this super freak in Dacos who, at a time, they've said it in that documentary grand final story, Dennis Banks said it, he goes, he was really concerned because they were dominating that first quarter and they could not kick a goal. And then Dacos got that one on the boundary. And then Gavin Brown said, like, he goes, that just sort of broke the shackles, and they all started thinking, oh, hang on, we're okay, we've got this guy, he can do this sort of stuff. So that's the sort of thing, like, that's what worries me when you bring in the McStays and that. It's like, oh, okay, he's a really good battler.
But like I said, you got Mitchell, who's a gun. Bobby Hill, if he lives up to the potential that people have been saying.
So you got to take the ifs out of it. So right now we're just going on what we know.
No, Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitchell's the one. So if you could get 50 possessions into the final, great. But like, when push comes to shove, you want that guy up forward, you want that guy down back. You want sort of guys who are going to be match winners. When you go back to the 2009 grand final, Scarlett does that little toe poke to Ablett, and then he kicks it long. It's actually Varco who rows it to Chapman, kicks the goal. All really good players. There was no sort of battlers going, well, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. So that's all I'm saying is, like, you need some of these guys to elevate beyond that. And Noble at the moment, that's what he's a really good warrior. But is he like a...
Well, part of the key is key position backs. So when you think you're more, obviously, we were undersized there last year. So, your mate Frampton is obviously they're relying on to do some of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a battle between Frampton and Murphy. And Murphy, I think, acquitted himself quite well last year.
Murphy, though, he has to stop that panic kick. When he gets it, he just goes, he's going to boot it 400 metres in the air and 25 foot back.
Hot potato. But
that's the way he plays. He's got to learn. I mean, he's still really young in his career. So...
Well, not really. He's been there for 40 years.
Yeah, but
most of them were injured.
Yeah, but in terms of games, he's about 30, 40 games or whatever. So he's still really young in his career like that. But yeah, I mean... You need this is what I'm just saying, you need class. Class wins. In grand finals, class wins. And very few times, I can't think of any actually, that like a battling side won a grand final, probably in 58. You look at and then you look at sort of, maybe people go, that 2016 Bulldogs side. But on that day, Boyd played the fucking game of his life. He was brilliant. And he was number one draft pick. He showed the form, that's why he was number one draft pick. So you need class to win these games. And we've seen it enough that we've lost because we've just lacked that class. And that's very well documented. Renee King said it. We just lack that one or two players. So I went on a bit of a tangent there. Jeremy Howe. Is he still good to go or is he just about finished?
He looked like Struggletown was the next destination a bit last year. He could be usurped fairly quickly. He's on the leadership group though. He's obviously positioned himself well to
yeah, but he was out for a long time, so last year might have been the pickup. Well, he's getting on. He's not taking, but he's still
he's still a good player.
Still a good player. You can't.
I think I think he could lose his spot this year, but probably not till maybe it'd have to be a bad run.
It'd be a very bad run, I reckon, to lose it.
And he's the one I could throw forward as like the third tall forward. Because like last year, the one thing toward the end of the season, he was really well behind guys on leads, and there was times even with standing marks, like where he sort of poised himself to leap, and he just didn't have the same leap to spoil them and all that. So I actually think he'll be a really, really interesting one. Still side by him.
Yeah, I was about to say really, really interesting. He's an unknown, isn't he? Really, because like you had him written off the previous year, and I probably agreed. But he performed more than admirably.
Played well
last year. So. How old is he now? To be early 30s?
31, I think.
Yeah. And he looks reasonably fit. And
He's someone you could put off a half back.
I'd actually love to see him half forward. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, he knows where the goals are. He's got good goal awareness. So.
He's got brilliant goal awareness.
Yeah, I think there'll be a role there for him for the bulk of the year.
So where do you tip will finish?
I said probably. Look, if it all clicks beautifully, I think top 4. If we respond to the draw being difficult and don't show dramatic improvement, we'll still probably make the 8, but we'll finish in the bottom half.
Chiefy?
Yeah, I think on a standard thing, we'll make the 8, and if things do click, yeah, I think we'll be top 4, you know, and have a year like we did last year.
I think we'll win
and
a
lose
flag.
it.
Fuck it. What? Any final thoughts on Mark Robinson or the club?
He's just getting back to the Ginnivan thing. He hasn't even fired a shot yet, Robbo, and I reckon the Herald Sun are saving him for some big day coming up. He'll have some. There's no footy shows or anything going on at the moment on Foxtel. Is
360's on, isn't it?
Is it started? What would they be talking about? Well, obviously Ginnivan now. He can't sit on his hands. Slobbo, he's got to come out with the big destruction piece. So.
What was the recent story where it was another scandalous one where he referenced the goey, but then he contradicted himself, like with the treatment? There was another sort of grabby type story that came out. Not the Steph Chiocci one, but there was another one recently.
He would have loved the Steph Chiocci one.
Yeah.
I vague recollection of because he was the one who said is to go with the dumbest footballer to ever play.
Yeah.
And then he's unfairly maligned with that follow-up story that Degoe was dragged through. What was that one?
I don't know.
Is that the one?
It's a few of them.
Yeah. It's obviously an important
one. He contradicts himself constantly. Like, I got it in my head, but I just can't.
But he's had the pot shots at Ginny in the past. He's going to have to go big on this one. He can't help himself. He'll be at home now, sweating. He'll be like a recovering addict. I'm just going to have one more hit. One more.
Yeah, but that was disgraceful last year, how the media just went on to
Not
Ginny.
just last year.
No, I mean with the arm thing, you know. Anyone else can do it, but this young kid, there's no defence about it. You know, chop his head off and there's no free kick. And barely anyone said anything. And they couldn't, they didn't lambast the AFL saying, "Oh no, that was actually okay. No, he shouldn't have got a free kick." What do you mean he shouldn't have got a free kick? You know.
The thing with all that is, you last year you ended up adjudicating the player.
Yeah,
not the infringements against him. The infringements you couldn't argue against them.
No.
They were there. And if that's the case, then what's the point of having the rules of the game?
Well,
why don't you just pay them all to the one who's really nice?
Yeah.
Well, that's what Lee Matthews said. He said that Mason Redmond one sickened him. And, the AFL said, well, the first one wasn't a free, but later on when he slung him, it was a free. And Matthews, I remember hearing him, because he said sort of Ginnivan, drops himself down. But Matthews goes, that's what you do when you're expecting contact. You actually brace yourself and you make yourself into a smaller target.
Unless you're about to take out a point post.
But, and that was a funny thing too, because I remember, Matthews said this, and then fuckwits on Twitter were coming out, oh, well, this is the guy who hit Neville Bruns. And it's like, well, what's one thing got to do with the other? So he hit someone, okay, but you can't comment on anything. And this guy who's considered probably one of the best players ever, one of the greatest coaches ever, but he hit Neville Bruns, so just that's it. You can't have an opinion. So, Twitter, you fuckwits. But yeah,
they know that.
I'm actually disappointed in the club last year. I said this. Last year, the club should have come out and just
said hard. Yeah.
They should have come out and McRae should have said, you start taking care of him or we will. And you are then responsible for the repercussions. And like that Redden one, if I was coach, I would have said, next time that happens, I don't give a fuck if you give up a goal. All 20 of you, or 18 of you on the field, run down and you fucking roughhouse the shit out of whoever's responsible. And then we're going to go to a press conference and we're going to say to the AFL, this is your fault. This is not our fault. This is your fault because you are not protecting a kid because you have deemed... Well, I would have done that. It's like, I think sometimes you've got to make the fucking stand because the club just did nothing, so the AFL still felt, well, we don't have to do anything about this. There's no pressure on us.
There wasn't enough. The club didn't stand up enough with that and just say, all right, we're going to wear the $10,000 fine or whatever, but
who gives a fuck about
go out and just tell it like it is.
But I would have just said to players, you mark up whoever does it. Whoever does it next, and I want the guy who considers doing it after him to fucking shit himself because he knows he just saw what happened to his teammate. and he knows this is coming for him if he does the same thing. If the club's not, if the AFL umpiring fraternity is not going to do anything, which is recklessly irresponsible and is creating an OH&S environment, which the club, I reckon, probably would have grounds to turn around and go, well, you're not protecting our player. We can now fucking sue you, or we can hold you liable, which the club should have actually floated also, then we're going to do it. And it's not us at fault, it's you at fault. But we didn't do anything, which is like really disappointing, like the Goey thing when they're in Bali. Like, instead of just sort of standing by him, they just sort of shit themselves and said, oh, well, we're going to suspend him and all that sort of shit, you know. So I'm actually a little bit disappointed the club doesn't come out a little bit stronger, because I'd want the players to think the club's got my back at all costs.
Well, I think this year then that Fly would be best served by having the Gimp in the coaching box with him. And anytime there's an event, he just sort of turns to him slowly. Gimp the Gimp.
Yeah, I think that's an injury joke. Anyway, I think I asked your final thoughts. Nothing more?
No, I think that's it. That's it, Chief. You got anything?
Premiership?
Okay, cool.
I want to hear that word. La 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 la.
Our aim is to get 6 premierships in the next 10 years.
I'm nervous now. I can't handle this. I can't handle this sort of rejection. No, when are we coming back again? We're going to wait till round 1, and we got something else equally pointless to talk about.
Well, let's see what's out there.
We've done a few
There's something out there.
podcast interviews.
Truth is out there.
They're coming out. I think we should be on Lace Out soon.
Lace Out.
And
A Yankee in
Connecticut, Yankee in King Arthur's Court. We podcasted with him.
Yeah.
No, it was a Yankee who loves AFL. We should know his name.
Oh, I know his actual name. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the podcast. It's just slipped.
We'll put a link in the bottom. That's what everyone says when they don't know the answer.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Chief's going to put a link in down the bottom. Do you know how to do that, Chief?
No.
Fuck. So we'll be on there. Keep an eye out for those. The American one was quite good.
I'll see some. The Lace Out one wasn't good.
We enjoyed that. I didn't even get to do an American accent. I was that enthralled with the conversation.
I thought you've been doing it this whole episode.
I know it's a talking shit accent.
Oh, okay. All right. Later.
Catch.
See ya.
You broke the camera.